Heroes are an inspiring group of people. Every one of them, from the larger-than-life comic book heroes you see on the big silver screen to the everyday heroes that let us live the privileged lives we do. Every hero has a story to tell. The doctor saving lives at your local hospital, the war veteran down the street who risked his lives for our freedom, the police officers and firefighters who risk their safety to ensure ours. Every hero is special and every story worth telling, but there is one class of heroes that I think is often ignored. The entrepreneur, the creator, the producer, the ones who look at the problems in this world and think to themselves, you know what? I can fix that. I can help people, and I can make a difference. Then they go out and do exactly that by creating a new product or introducing a new service. Some go on to change the world, others make a world of difference to their customers. Welcome to The Hero Show. Join us as we pull back the masks of the world's finest heropreneurs and learn the secrets to their powers, their success, and their influence, so you can use those secrets to attract more sales, make more money, and experience more freedom in your business. I'm your host, Richard Matthews, and we are on in 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome back to The Hero Show. My name is Richard Matthews, of course. I am on the line with Lorraine Reguly. Lorraine, are you there?
I am. How are you doing,
I'm so
Richard?
glad that I didn't butcher the name because I really thought I was going to. So glad to have you here. Let me do a quick introduction for you, and then we'll get in and start talking about your story and how you got to be here. So Lorraine is an English teacher who is now a freelance editor, blogger, author, and entrepreneur. And your life journey is motivational and inspirational. And I got a peek through the rest of your bio. It does look like you have quite an interesting life journey to share today. And you offer a couple of different services in your business. Your business is called Wording Well, and you do writing, blogging, editing, coaching, consulting, and mentoring. And you also help people become published authors, which is pretty cool. I was actually just this morning working on one of my next books. So
Oh, that's wonderful.
That's fun. So let me start with what you're known for now. Why do people reach out to you? Why do they hire you? What is it that they're looking to get help with when they call you up and say, "Hey, Lorraine, I wanna work with you"?
So most people are authors or want to be authors and don't really know what the next steps are in becoming a published author. Because nowadays anyone can put a book up on Amazon and sell it. So that's really cool that technology has allowed us to do that. And I work with a lot of first-time authors. Some of my authors, though, are, repeat authors like Maxwell Ivy, whom you had a podcast with not too long ago. I helped Max with his first book, and he ended up writing 2 more after that. And I believe he's working on his 4th now. So that's really exciting. But I am known for my English skills and my editing skills. I love working with words. Words are my passion. I've been reading and writing ever since I was like yay high. 5 years old, 6 years old, really early in life. And that passion has carried through my whole entire life, and now I'm actually doing something I love doing, which is helping others, improving their words, and helping them become authors. I'm also known for helping other people in terms of living their best life and overcoming any kind of obstacles they have, whether it's trauma, addiction, or abuse, any sort of, heavy issues like that, simply because I have had a tumultuous life experience in those areas. And we can talk more about that if you like.
So that's actually a good segue into the next question, which is about your origin story, right? Every hero has an origin story. It's where you sort of started to realize that you were different, that maybe you had superpowers. What is it that brought you to where you are today? How did you get onto this entrepreneurial journey where you are both helping people become authors and helping people overcome major obstacles in their past?
So I originally had a different view of my life when I was a teenager. But when I was 14 and a virgin, I was raped. And so that event devastated me to the point where it changed the course of my life. And it's been a roller coaster ride of ups and downs over the years. Initially, I didn't know how to cope, and so I ended up quitting school and turning to drugs and drinking, turning to food, turning to sleeping, anything to avoid feeling the emotional pain and trauma of the event. My thoughts and my viewpoints and my belief system all changed as a result. My views about love and sex got really twisted, and
Messed up.
I didn't have anybody to talk to, or at least I didn't feel as though I had anyone to talk to. And this was, when I was a teenager, way back in the 1980s. So the society that we live in now is completely different from how the world was back then. I mean, this was pre-internet, almost pre-computers, but there was, no Facebook, this was before everything, right? And so I didn't really feel as though I could tell my mom or, even my friends or any, teachers or guidance counselors or anything. So I kept everything bottled up inside and tried dealing with everything on my own, which was extremely difficult. And I fell into a severe depression. I tried to kill myself. I went through a really dark period. And because my views about love and sex were so changed, I was brought up as a Catholic, and, you save your virginity till you're married, and taught all these kinds of things. Well, I started thinking, if I give guys sex, maybe that means they love me. And that was my twisted 15-year-old brain, not understanding the possible ramifications of, what could happen. And so, with the drugs and the drinking and everything else, I became promiscuous. And that just pretty much led me to being used and abused even more. So, when I got an offer to make money for providing sexual favors, I ended up doing that, and I got involved with prostitution. So it's, my life started out, my teenagehood, which led into my young adulthood, was very different than what I had envisioned for myself. And I went
It's a
through,
rough story.
I went through, and I went through, at 16, I found out I was pregnant. I ended up having an abortion. At 17, I found out I was pregnant again. And I was dating a guy at the time, and I really had strong feelings for him. I really loved him. I believed he loved me. And so my son, I ended up keeping him. And because, he, in my mind, he was created out of love. And also there was a story that my mom had told me during my first pregnancy about a would-be aunt of mine, someone my uncle was dating, and turned out she had an abortion and now she can't have kids. And then here I was thinking, here I am, pregnant again. I can actually have a kid. Maybe I should have it because, there's a woman out there who wants kids so bad and can't have them. And I thought, I've been given a second chance. And so I ended up becoming a single mom at the age of 18. And that was actually a really positive thing for me, because over the years when I had, my depression was so bad that I ended up having suicidal thoughts. I never acted on them from that point forward because I didn't want to leave my son without a mother. And, being a single mom, I was all he had, really. And so my son has saved my life time and time again. And my desire to give him a better life caused me to go back to school, finish my high school education, go to university, Went for 5 years. I obtained 2 degrees. I became a high school math and English teacher. And, you know, I really tried doing like the best I could for my son to give him a better life and a better future. And, you know, as well as myself, of course. So everything was going fairly well until I ended up quitting teaching and moving back to my hometown. I ended up back in the prostitution field, and my son found out what I was doing. So he pretty much disowned me, moved out, didn't want to have any contact with me, and that sent me into another downward spiral of depression. And basically I hit my rock bottom during the following year after he moved out. And for 10 months of that year, I ended up smoking crack cocaine and having an addiction to that, which fortunately for me, I was able to pull myself out of that and change everything, because I realized like that was it. That was my bottom. I mean, I needed to get my shit together, basically. I needed to get my son back in my life. I needed to get off the streets, off the drugs. I needed to make changes. And so I did. And oddly enough, once I started getting healthy, my appendix burst. And I ended up in the hospital. I was literally dying. I was literally dying after all these years of having suicidal thoughts. It was like I was actually dying. I mean, I was in so much pain physically. Oh my God, it was worse. It was like worse than childbirth. It was horrible. Most pain I ever felt in my life. And I realized in those moments in the hospital that I didn't want to die. I especially didn't want to die without saying goodbye to my son. And I had a lot to live for. Like, it was like an eye-opening aha moment that you hear, you know, people talk about. And that was my aha moment. And so after I got out of the hospital, I ended up contacting my son. I found out where he was working, and I called him at work, and we ended up reconnecting. From there, we rebuilt our relationship, and it was, you know, a dream come true at that point. Having him back in my life and moving forward on a positive note for the first time in our lives was, you know, something that was just absolutely incredible. And at that point, like, I vowed to pursue my dreams of becoming a writer and an author. And I ended up the following, in 2013, I ended up starting my website. And a year later, I opened my business because during that first year, I ended up starting to freelance, getting paid to freelance write. And so I started a freelance writing and then editing business. And I just added more services over the years, you know, mentoring and coaching. And then once I became an author and I started helping other people become authors, I added the author assistance services to it. So now I have, 4 services that I offer at Writing Well. And, you know, for the first time in my life, I'm actually happy. I have great relationships with the people around me, and a great relationship with my son now, and he's proud of me once again. So things are, and, you know, I'm working doing something I love doing. So really, what more could a person ask for?
So you weren't kidding when you said it was a roller coaster of an origin story.
Mm-hmm.
Everything from, rape and prostitution and suicide, and having children and abortion, all the way to connecting and building, realizing that you have great gifts. You have a spark of divinity, you have something to give this world. and changing that around into a business that serves other people. That's an inspiring story.
Thank you. I just want to mention too that when I first started blogging, I wrote about my experience with suicide and my attempt, and I ended up getting over 500 people a day at one point for months reading my story and listening to the tips that I offered them in terms of, helping them not kill themselves and helping them get out of their depression and everything. And I realized at that point I needed to give them more. And that's what prompted me to write my book, From Nope to Hope, so that I could share more of the techniques and strategies and things that I learned in my years of counseling, and then afterwards as well, to lead a healthier and happier life. Because things just didn't change overnight for me. I had to work on myself, and I had to work to get out of the situations that I was in order to move forward and live a happy life. And so in my book, From Nope to Hope, I also included like a built-in workbook that people can, at the end of each chapter, that has questions and an area for people to actually like write in, so that they can start applying what they've learned in that chapter to their own life and start taking action immediately, so that they can, start taking steps forward every day themselves to make their lives a better life, like one they actually want to live.
That's awesome. Yeah. So what I want to talk about is your superpowers, right? So a lot of the time on this show, we talk about the superpowers in your business or in your life. And a lot of times superpowers, if you're looking at a superpower in like comic books, it's like something that was bestowed upon you, or sometimes it's something that you go and you have to develop yourself. Like if you look at the Batman comics or whatever, his superpowers, so to speak, he went and actually developed his skills. And some of them, like Spider-Man or whatever, he was like imbued with them. And it seems to me like you have a life that allowed you to develop superpowers. And I'm curious, at this point in your story, if you look at your life, what would you say your superpowers are?
Actually, always throughout my whole entire life, I have been the person that people come to and talk to about their problems. I have been the problem solver. I have been the listener. So I think my superpower is my approachability and willingness to help other people. So like people can confide in me with their deepest, darkest secrets that they don't feel comfortable telling other people. Things like depression, suicidal thoughts, if they're cutting themselves, if they're in an abusive relationship, whatever issues that they're facing that are not something that they would admit to just anyone. And so I think my superpower is being that person that they just know they can turn to, that they can trust, that sincerely and genuinely wants to help them.
And how do you think that translates into the services that you offer in your business when it comes to helping people become authors and doing your mentoring and coaching?
Well, I'm very open about pretty much everything in my life. Like I've written so much online that I don't hide who I am. And I think my openness allows me to connect with other people on a level that offers them more comfort and reassurance that they're going to be genuinely taken care of, that their interests and their desires are going to be realized and met. With helping other people become authors, there's a lot of different steps in the process. They're not difficult, but they can be very overwhelming because they have to be done in certain orders. And I basically handhold people's hands to get them there, going from one step to the next and reminding them what they need to do as what I'm doing. especially for, you know, being authors. Like, yes, most people will hire me to edit their books. A lot of people will end up having me format their books for both digital and print versions. There's the cover creation process that needs to be taking place while most of this is happening, because, you know, you don't just make a cover overnight and it's perfect. So I have a cover designer that I work with that did my second book cover, who it just turned out so great. So now I recommend him to my clients, and several of my clients have used him. His name's Ravi Verma from R Designs, and he's actually working with another one of my clients right now, my current client right now. And so there's a lot of, and then, you know, authors have to get the ISBN numbers. They have to, you know, open their own KDP Amazon account, and, you know, hook up their own bank account and fill out the taxation information. All of this needs to be done before I can do the final proof of the print book. So, you know, it's like a team effort, and we work together so well. And my openness and willingness to help others and make it easy, make the process easy for them to understand, so that they're not overwhelmed and they can get things done in, you know, when they need to be done. So, I mean, that carries over, you know, my superpower carries over into my business, just because of my genuine willingness to help others throughout every step of the way.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And a lot of for big projects like getting a book done, or you know, making a major change in your life and your business, there's a lot of things that have to happen, and being able to, you know that map and really help someone go all the way through every step is really crucial. So I want to talk about the other side of that. So when it comes to your superpower, there's the other side, which is the fatal flaw. And the fatal flaw is like, you know, Superman has his kryptonite. And specifically in your business, when it comes to growing your business, working with your clients, you know, doing marketing, lead generation, all the stuff that sort of make a business go, what would you say one of your fatal flaws has been in growing your business, and how have you learned to overcome that? So someone else who might suffer from something similar, like I for the longest time suffered from perfectionism, and it kept me from really pushing my business forward. Right?
It's like you're reading my mind, because that's exactly what I was going to say. Is I'm a perfectionist, Richard, and I really want to hear actually some of your ways that you overcame it, because I have yet to overcome it.
So how has perfectionism been holding you back? Before we get into that, we can talk about it a little bit.
So perfection, everything has to be perfect. And it's great when I'm working with clients, because they love that about me. You know, I don't stop working on their books until they're perfect, especially during the formatting process, which can be a nightmare sometimes with the print version. Because and I'm just going to briefly tell you what the problem is, because a Word document has to be saved as a PDF document. And when the PDF gets uploaded to KDP, to the Amazon KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing, they do a conversion and make it ready into a print ready file for the print version of your book. So there's two conversions that happen. And sometimes the spacing of the words in the paragraphs, the chapters, get affected. And so they're not perfect. So then I have to go back to the original document, fix it so that when the two conversions happen, it is still going to be perfect. And when you're working with say a 272 page book, I just worked with Rita Carboon's book. She's a first time author. And I ended up spending and this is no word of a lie, 10 hours fixing this one file. It was a nightmare. But anyways, I ended up getting it done. And in the end, it was perfect.
So perfectionism takes your time.
So working with clients, and that's fine. But when it comes to blogging or, working on growing my business and creating courses, which I'm in the process of doing, I find that it holds me back because I can't wrap my head around the idea of done is better than perfect. For me, I can't, a lot of bloggers will say that, like, at least it's done, the article's there, it's been published. It might not be perfect, but you did it. And for me, it's like, I can't hit the publish button until it's perfect. Whether it's, a blog post on my website, or whether it's, something to do with marketing efforts or emails or anything like that. Like, I find that I don't have the ability to let the perfectionism go, because it's something I pride myself in, which can hold me back because, like I said, sometimes just getting it done is half the battle, right? But I have to not only get it done, but it has to be perfect. So I have higher standards for myself, and if I don't meet them, I feel as though I'm a failure, which then, of course, brings on the whole, thoughts that
Triggers
like, oh, I'm not
PTSD
good
stuff.
enough and everything else. And it's like, Jesus, Murphy, I thought I've overcome all of these negative thoughts. That was part of, my whole moving forward in life was, using positive affirmations, which is one of the strategies that I use to keep my mindset positive and moving forward. So yeah, but with the perfectionism, oh my goodness.
So I have a couple of strategies that I think will help you because they helped me.
Okay.
One of them is a mindset, right? The done is better than perfect is like it's an almost there, but it's something that you can push aside and say, no, done isn't better than perfect. But the one that really helped me was a friend of mine recently actually told me that perfectionism is the lowest standard you can hold yourself to, because perfectionism isn't real, right? So, because you can't reach perfection. And perfection for you is going to look different than perfection for the person who's going to consume your article or for the person who's going to consume your product. And so to hold yourself to a standard that doesn't exist is like holding yourself to no standard at all. So the best standard is the standard that helps your clients the best, right? And if you don't hit publish, if you don't ship the product, if you don't get in front of the stage of people, whatever it is that you do, if you don't do that thing, then you have no standard to hold yourself to, right? You haven't held yourself to any standard at all, because perfectionism isn't real, right? It's not a thing that you can actually hit. So anyways, the mental shift was, for me, it was that perfectionism is the lowest standard I can hold myself to. It's not a high standard I'm trying to reach. It's like flipping it on its head. Okay. So it's sort of a rough mental shift to make, but once you do, it really changes the way you think about it, because then you're thinking about, what do I need to get shipped in order for me to make an impact in my client's life? Maybe that's hitting the publish button. Maybe that's getting the book finished. Maybe that's, whatever it is, it's getting the ad going for your business. So that was the first one. And that was really helpful for me. The second one was taking things off of my plate and getting them onto an executive assistant, right? Someone, right. So at the end, when you finish an article and you're like, I can't hit the publish button because it's not perfect, give it to your assistant to publish. Because they'll be like, oh, it looks great, and publish it for you. And then it's not in your hands. You didn't do it. Right. So having a team around you, as I've grown my team, I've been able to let more and more go. And then you start to realize that as you both outsource different tasks and get things onto other people, that they will get things done, and you'll review them afterwards and be like, it's maybe not be the way that I would have done it, may not be what the same like path to get there that I would have done, but it works. It does what I needed to do, and it actually helps grow my business. So having a team help you get things accomplished has really helped me get past holding myself back with perfectionism, because things are getting done on a regular basis instead of me, being afraid to hit the publish button, so to speak. Yes,
and I actually agree with you on that point, because I at the beginning of 2019, I hired a virtual assistant to handle my Twitter account. And I was a little apprehensive at first because I'm like, you have to pretend to be me. You have to make sure that everything you write is, you know, perfectly edited and perfect, right? Because in my head, there's that perfectionism. But anyways, she did really well, and I was impressed with her writing skills. And I thought, yeah, I could trust her to do this. And she ended up over the course of like 4 or 5 months, she ended up growing my Twitter followers for me by increasing them by like probably 1,500 people, like organic reach people, not just random people, but people who are genuinely interested in the things that I'm sharing, you know, whether it comes to blogging, writing, and editing. And so I was really impressed that I was able to let that part go and just put everything, all the responsibility into the hands of someone else. And so that was really, really cool. And it helped me a lot. And I think that, you know, moving forward, I'm definitely going to have to hire someone to help me with other tasks in the future, because there's just too many. I can't do everything alone anymore.
And also the things that scare you with the perfectionism, right? Like when the article's done, just send it to your assistant and be like, can you publish this for me? Because you're like, you know, you look at that publish button and it's scary. You're like, I don't know if it's perfect or not, but you can have someone else who can overcome that for you. So it's like cheating the system, right?
Right. Yeah. And it's funny because, you know, I have like 50 something drafts in my website folder right now, and they're in various stages of completion. Some are actually finished. But then I didn't hit the publish button on the last one because then I thought, oh, I want to put some of this information into my course. And I want to rework this article so that when my course comes out, I can, you know, market my course in it. And so I have all these different ideas, but I'm thinking, you know, like people aren't going to remember that 4-month step from now. So maybe I should just hit it, put it out there, let it, you know, rank on Google in the meantime, and then come back to it and say, and then I can always edit and revise it later. So I know but in my head, it's like, you know, I have this like, no, I have to do it this way. And so tunnel
for
vision.
someone who does editing for books, though, it's a great mental personality to have.
Well, is it really though?
Because you know, you want someone who's a perfectionist. Did you mean to have an Oxford comma here, or
yeah, and that's another thing too. You know, like I had to really learn the differences between American and British English, because yes, the Oxford comma. I mean, it's funny because, you know, people over in, you know, the UK and Australia, they have their own way of writing and sentence structure with, you know, commas and everything else. And which is hilarious because I'm from Canada, but yet I get paid in US dollars and I generally write in US English. So it's kind of strange because, you know, I'll put the U in color or in favorite, and Americans don't, but the Brits do, and the Australians do. And so it's like, you know, I'm constantly aware of who I'm communicating with, especially in emails. It's like if I'm communicating with somebody over in the UK, I will write the British English. And it just seems so weird to me because I'm not used to that. And I actually don't agree with some of the conventions they use. However, I follow the rules, and you know, and that's that. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. So yeah.
What I talk about next is your common enemy, and this is something with your clients, right? So when you bring a new client on, maybe a new author client, think of common enemy as the thing that you would remove from their life, from their mindset, from whatever it is that's holding them back from getting done what they want to get done, when you want to help them get done. If you had like a magic wand and you could just wave it over your clients as soon as they hired you, that would help you get their product accomplished or their book finished, 10 times faster, what would that be? What's something that's holding your clients back?
Well, I think my clients generally come to me with their books already finished. So that's not the issue. Their issue is understanding the next phase, which is making their book perfect in terms of, fixing up all the grammatical errors, if they have, typos that they don't realize, things like that. And then checking my work to make sure that they're happy with what I've done. So putting the trust into me. Some of them aren't, obviously they approach me because, they've heard about me or someone's recommended me, or they found me and they've read all the testimonials on my website. And so they know that I'm fully capable. It's just actually working with me. So what I generally do is, I find that I'm always reassuring them, like, don't worry, you're in good hands. You don't need to panic. I'm going to help you through it. Because they're always, like, well, what do I do when I get to this step? I'm like, it's okay. You know what? I got your back. Like, relax. We're going to do this together. And, like I said, the hand holding process throughout every step of the way. So
if you could get them to just automatically trust that you'll help them finish the process.
Yeah, like to trust themselves, that they don't need to be so stressed out, that I will help them. I will be there for them. Like I just did my last email to my client last night. I'm like, I'm only an email away if you have questions. Like, this is, and another client, she's like, well, can I call you? Can I call you? She always wants to call me. I'm like, yes, you can call me. If that's what's going to take to make you feel better, yes, you can call me. So it's, just going that like extra mile for my clients to make them feel reassured and comfortable that everything's being taken care of.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So the other side of a common enemy is the driving force. It's the thing that you fight for, right? So Spider-Man fights to save New York, or Batman fights to save Gotham, or Google fights to index all the world's information. What is it that you fight for in your business?
I fight for the preservation of the English language, because you look on social media and people are texting and they're using the letter U instead of typing out Y-O-U. And it's, or you are, the letters you are for your. And then also the mistakes that so many people make, the Y-O-U-R versus the Y-O-U''RE. Like, your shirt or you are. Like, you're wearing a blue shirt today. Your shirt is blue. Like, you are is Y-O-U''RE, and your is like ownership. It's, your shirt. So people get those confused all the time. Same with there, and there. And I'm just like the grammar police all the time and trying to correct people. And I've learned to come across with a little bit more tact now and not make people feel bad about their mistakes, but just try to teach them the proper way and do it in a way that, hopefully they'll realize, like, oh, she's only trying to help me. She's not like mad at me about it, so.
I feel the same way about the appropriation of words, right? I have this whole thing that I say all the time. It's like words mean things. Like, they have definitions, and those definitions are important, and like, we need to use them the way that they're meant to be used. So I totally agree with you on the whole preservation of the English language, because it's what allows us to run our society and do the things we do and communicate and build businesses and help people, is because we have a shared language, and our language, like, the words mean things, and I can say something here and it means the same thing as it does somewhere else. Or to put it in economic terms, our language is fungible, right? It's the word means the same thing here as it does over there.
Right. And that's really important because, communication is, I think, the most important component of any type of relationship. You need to, now whether it's a relationship with, like a spouse or a family member, or like a relationship with a client, or just a relationship on social media with a bunch of other people. We all speak the same, we don't all speak the same language. There's people that know different languages, but generally speaking, the people that we communicate with the most speak our language. And so we need to be able to keep that intact and be the best communicators we can be, so that we can, continue to grow and move forward and, be happy. It also avoids misunderstandings and fights and everything else. So so communication is like really important.
Cool. So let's move on a little bit and talk about your hero's tool belt, right? Maybe you got a big magic hammer like Thor, or a bulletproof vest like your neighborhood police officer, or maybe you just really love how Evernote helps you organize your thoughts when you're working with a client project. What are some of the tools that you use on an everyday basis to help you do the work you do for your clients?
So I use Microsoft Word because I use the track changes feature to show my clients the edits that I'm making to their books or to their words, whether it's a book or whether it's a blog post, because I also edit blog posts for people. So Microsoft Word is my number one. Gmail is my number two. I love Gmail because of all of its features. And I don't think I really need to get into that because, everybody pretty much uses Gmail these days. They don't.
Gmail is like the standard.
Right. But in keeping with the Google, I'm not sure of the exact name of it, if it's G Suite or whatever, but Google Docs it's a tool that's free to use, just like Google Sheets and, Google Slides for, instead of using the Microsoft Office package where you've got the PowerPoint and the Excel for, this Google Sheets you use for the spreadsheet. Google Slides kind of, is similar to the Microsoft PowerPoint. But Google Docs is, something that I like. It's very similar to Word, can do most things, but the reason I like it is because it automatically saves changes. So there's a pros and cons to, like, if you're editing something, or if you're actually just writing something or making notes. So if you're just making notes, that's great. I think Google Docs is great for that. It has a phone app. You can set it to be used offline. So if you're somewhere where there's no internet, you can still access it. It also has the speech to text feature. So you can use your voice to take notes or to record something, which I really love. And actually Max is the one who got me using that type of technology, because I asked him how he writes so much. And he's like, well, I just dictate it. And I'm like, oh, I never thought about dictating it. When I think of dictation, I think, this lawyer and the secretary in the office where the lawyer's, saying something and the secretary is typing it up on the computer. Like, to me, like, that's such an old school visual of dictation. So, we've come so far since then. And now I can just, grab my phone. And if I want to make a note, I can, if I don't want to type it, I can just say it. And I also actually enabled the speech to text function on my my keyboard on my phone, so I can just hit the little record button and it'll convert my words into text, and then I'll just go quickly and edit it if I need to, add a comma or whatever. You do have to learn like a couple of little instructions to speak. So like if you want to start a new paragraph, you say new paragraph. If you want to put a comma, you say comma. And if you don't speak clearly, sometimes it'll come out as karma. So you have to kind of, get your voice but Google's really good. It'll actually adapt to your voice. It'll get to know your speaking patterns. And, so that's something that's in my personal toolbox because I just love it so much.
One of the things I really like about Google Docs is that you can also share your documents live with someone. Right?
Yes.
So like I can hand it to an editor and they can edit things in the same spots. We're not passing documents back and forth in email all the time and trying to figure out which version is the latest one. It's like you have the latest one and we're all working on the same document.
Yes, that's another really cool feature of either the Google Sheets or whatever. You can have multiple people working on it at the exact same time as well. So if I remember one time I created a spreadsheet and I had invited all these bloggers to, post their favorite blog with a link to that blog and, say why they love that blog. And you could just see everybody's like working in their own little cell, and it's just like, oh, boom, first it's like you see all this empty space, and then 2 minutes later it's like filled right up, and it's just really cool that they have that feature.
You can do that kind of stuff.
And then the sharing link too, you can just send a link to somebody and say, here's like just almost similar to Dropbox. I mean, that's another really cool tool that a lot of people use. I don't use it a lot, but I have a Dropbox account, but I don't use it on a daily basis. But those three things are something I use on a daily basis. And of course, all the social media apps on my phone, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, blah, blah, blah. So those are,
The Hero Show will be right back. Are you tired of trying to write webinars that don't consistently convert? How would you like to have a webinar that effortlessly created sales in your online business? You can. Introducing the Webinar Alchemy Workshop. Webinar Alchemy Workshop is an online masterclass that will help you write incredibly persuasive webinars for your online courses quickly and easily. Using what you learn in this class, you can build a webinar that educates your entire audience while still creating sales. For a limited time, you can purchase this masterclass for only $7, and you'll get the exact framework I've personally used to help my clients sell more than $1 million worth of online coaching and training just over the last year. Simply text the word alchemy, ALCHEMY, to 444999, and I'll send you all the details.
The music is by Purple Planet Music. Visit www.purple-planet.com.
And now, back to the show.
I want to take a moment and talk a little bit about your own personal heroes. Like Frodo had Gandalf, Luke had Obi-Wan, Robert Kiyosaki had his Rich Dad. Who were some of your heroes? Were they real-life mentors? Were they speakers or authors? Were they peers who were just 2 years ahead of you? And how important were they to what you've accomplished so far? And in your case, some of the roller coaster journey you had to overcome to get where you are today?
So I think the first person that really had an impact on me was one of my teachers. After I had quit school and had my son, I ended up going back to school in a program for single mothers. And the teacher that was in charge of my program was previously trained as a counselor and ended up choosing teaching as a second career. And so one day after, she and I I'd been there for lunch, she'd gotten to know me, she approached me and asked me what the heck happened to me. And I just looked at her and she's like, I said, what are you talking about? She's like, you've suffered some kind of abuse or something. And she just looked at me and I said, yes. And I'm like, how did you know? She's like, I could tell. And that's when she told me that she used to be a counselor. And we ended up talking and I told her that, yes, I had been raped and I hadn't dealt with it. And she's like, oh, Lorraine, you have to deal with this. Like, you have to get counseling for this. You have to overcome it. And so it was with her help that I ended up getting a referral. I asked her if she would do it because, I knew her so well, but she was my teacher. She wasn't doing counseling anymore. And so she was my mentor at that point. And I became very, very close to her. I looked at her as like a second mother. And on my graduation day, she ended up coming to my private, backyard barbecue graduation party that was at my boyfriend's house at the time. And so, she really was like my second mom. So she was my very first sort of mentor that made a huge impact on me, simply because she urged me. not simply because there was a lot of reasons, but she was the one who actually urged me to get into counseling, which ended up making a huge difference in my life. And the only other person that I really have for someone that I look up to and admire is Maxwell Ivy. And you know Max. He's known as the blind blogger. Yeah. He is such an inspiration to me because of all he does, and he's blind. It's like, oh my God, you do so much, that's impressive. But add in the fact that he's blind and doing it boggles my mind, like how talented and patient and skilled he is. And then looking at his personal journey, especially with weight loss, because weight loss is something I've struggled with my whole life. And I mean, he ended up having the gastric bypass surgery and went from like 512 pounds down to 250.
Wow.
In a matter of, I think it was 3 years or 3 to 4 years. It was under 4. I think it was 3 to 4 years. He initially had to lose 80 pounds in order to get the surgery done. And then the surgery helped him lose more and then keep it off. And so when he wrote his book, It's Not the Cookie, It's the Bag, I can't remember what the tagline is, something about weight loss guide, a guide to weight loss success or something like that, where he shares all of his, techniques and strategies that he used to lose and maintain his weight loss. I just think, that's phenomenal in itself. And anyone who's ever tried to lose weight knows how impressive that is. So, I mean, that's just one component of Max's life. And then, the fact that he's a blogger, that he's an author, that he's a podcaster, a business owner. He's got, a few different businesses, doing the Midway Marketplace where he brokers the amusement park stuff. Then he does the personal coaching on his website. Now he's into the online media publicity because he's been on so many podcasts and he gets other people on podcasts, like on the right ones, so if they have like a motivational story to tell, they'll send people like me, he'll send people like me your way because, this is like what you do, right? So he matches people up and he was doing that initially for free. And I'm like, Max, what do you do? Like that could be a business. And other people said that too. And so he's now doing that as part of one of the services that he offers. So the fact that he's blind and does everything with, screen reading technology and the different other things, like he just inspires me and amazes me. And his podcast is called What's Your Excuse? And it's so perfect because, oh my God, if Max can do what he does as a blind person, what the hell is my excuse as a sighted person? Like, I have things way easier because I can see, what Absolutely. The heck's my excuse? And so, every time I get down on myself and I think like, oh, I don't want to do this. It's like, you know what? Be grateful for everything. Like
WWMD, what would Max do?
Yeah, it reminds me, every morning when I wake up, there's that quote, I don't know who said it, but it's like, this morning when I woke up, I opened 2 gifts, my eyes.
Nice.
And I think, yes, because we take that for granted. We take for granted so much. We take for granted that we could see, that we could walk, that we could do so many things, like I was in an accident several years back, about 14 years ago, actually, and I almost lost my leg and I had to learn how to walk again. And, as part of my weight loss journey, I use walking as a form of exercise. And I think like, I don't want to go for a walk. And then I was listening to one of the guys my son listens to, he's like, you get to walk. You need to change your mindset and say that you get to walk, not like, oh, I have to exercise. Like, no, I get to exercise. So I get to walk, I get to see. I need to be grateful and, a lot of other people need to be more conscious of what they're taking for granted and what they should actually be grateful for too. So that's another one of the things that I like to do is, you know, help people become more mindful and more aware of the gifts that they've been given and use them to their fullest potential. So yeah, so sorry for the long-winded
No, I mean, there's a couple people that really help change your life, and it's awesome.
Yeah, so those are the two people that I would put right up there on my list.
Yeah, I think we all have our mentors or our heroes that helped us become the people that we are, and it's I think it's powerful. It's why we put the show together, to help show and showcase the power of, you know, getting up and doing something, right, and offering your value to the world. Because if Max didn't have that, if he wasn't doing that, he wouldn't be that mentor for you, right? He wouldn't be that hero for you, and who knows where you would be without it, right? And same thing in my life, you know, if I wasn't standing up doing the things that I was doing, you know, I don't even know the impact of my reach, right? And you don't know the impact of your reach either, right? For every book that you've helped gotten published, there's probably someone out there who's read one of those books, and you've helped change their lives.
And you know, it was because of Max that I ended up publishing my first book. I even wrote a blog post about it, like how a blind man helped me publish Risky Issues or something like that. It's like, because I had told him that I was writing a book, and he's like, well, I want you to help me with my book. And he's like, Lorraine, I'm ready to get this book done. I'm ready to get it out there. I'm like, Max, I don't even know if I know all the steps. Like, this is before I even published my first book way back when. And I'm like, I don't even know if I can do this. He's like, yeah, you can do it. This is what you're doing. I'm like, get it done. Like, come on, what are you waiting for? And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I'll do it. So I got it done. I pushed myself. I finished it. I made sure I went through all the steps properly. The book turned out great. And I was like, okay, thank you, Max. Thank you for pushing me. And so he pushed me to publish my first book, and then I was able to help him with his. And because he told so many people how wonderful of a job I did, he started sending people my way, and I ended up, you know, helping, you know, a lawyer publish a book and helping other people. So now I've got a whole list of people that I've helped publish their books, and it's just been an incredible journey. So
awesome.
I have Max to thank for that, though.
Let's bring the interview home for our listeners and talk about your guiding principles. What are the top 1 or 2 principles or actions you use on a daily basis that help contribute to your success in your business? Maybe something you wish you knew when you first started out this journey.
So I wish I knew about positive affirmations, because that is probably my number 1 strategy or technique that I use on a daily basis to help keep my mindset focused and in the zone where it should be. As someone who has struggled with depression, I often don't want to get out of bed when I wake up. Even now, even we know with all like reaching towards all my dreams and attaining them and everything else, I still, when I wake up, I'm like, I want to just lay in bed. I want to finish the movie I fell asleep watching. I want to do, you know, it's like, and I immediately, I have to think like, okay, wipe those from your mind, you know, get up, drink your water, drink. So now I drank a whole bunch of water. I keep a bottle by my bedside. A lot of people do this. So that's one of the things I start doing. So that's part of my routine is I drink water, I take my medication. I end up having tea and reading my affirmations. And that's something that sets my mind. And I do that like within like right away of waking up. So I can get my mind in the right place it needs to be so that I'm not, you know, laying there thinking, oh, dwelling on this, or, oh, I feel like this, or, oh, I feel like that. And, you know, like I had said today earlier before the podcast, my stomach was a little upset last night and this morning. And I said to you, I don't really feel like a hero today. And then I was like, wait a second, you know what? I can change that. So I've learned to take the negative self-talk and immediately switch it over to something positive. And I use positive affirmations to do that. And Richard, one of the things that I've actually included in my book is a chapter all about positive affirmations. And I've made that free on my website because I didn't learn about positive affirmations until the last probably about 4 or 5 years ago. And it wasn't something I learned in counseling. It was a strategy that I just came across online in my research and my studies. And positive affirmations work so well, and they work quickly. Like in as little as a week, your mindset will start to change. You will start noticing differences in your way of thinking if you use positive affirmations on a daily basis. So I always like to say positive affirmations are kind of my secret to happiness.
Secret weapon.
And yeah, exactly. It's like that's my secret right there. And so I have an article called How to Use Positive Affirmations to Improve Your Life that talks about what positive affirmations are. It talks about your mindset and how positive affirmations work on your mind. And I talk about how I use them. I talk about samples of, different samples, affirmations that you can have for any area of your life. There's a whole, thing, like you can copy part of the blog post, or you can even download the blog post to your device. There's a worksheet as well. It's all free, like I said, all free on wordingwell.com. So if you Google Wording Well and positive affirmations, that will come
we'll see if we can get a link to it in the show notes for this episode. Yeah, positive affirmations are one of those things. Like I like to think of them like one of my favorite analogies for the way your subconscious and conscious mind work was a book by Vince Pisconti called The Ant and the Elephant. He talks about your conscious mind being the ant and your subconscious mind being the elephant, and learning how to train the ant to like drive the elephant, right? And positive affirmations are how you do that. They're one of the techniques you can use to drive the elephant, so to speak, right? Where you can control what your subconscious mind is doing and thinking. And it's that self-talk, whether that's negative self-talk or positive self-talk, that impact how the rest of all the power of your brain, how it works, right? It's going to feed off of what your conscious mind gives it, right? So those positive affirmations, believing them or not, is irrelevant because
exactly. And that's what a lot of people don't realize initially when you start using them. You don't have to believe them. You just have to say them, because the more you say them, they will sink into your subconscious. And the more your subconscious gets of them, it'll start believing them. So it will change your conscious mind over time. And
absolutely,
you just like, oh wow, like this is amazing, So it makes your inner reality match your outer reality. That's the same with visualization, which is another technique that I like to use as well. It helps make your inner reality, your outer reality match your inner reality. So if you believe that you're going to be, successful, and you believe that you can do it, your mind will fight and help you to take those actions to make it possible and come true. And it works like magic almost, really. I mean, that's how powerful and magical they are. Like, I just love them so much. And, it's funny because when I first heard about them, I was like really skeptical and thinking like, this sounds too good to be true. But no, I gave them a shot because I thought, well, what do I have to lose, right? And
I think your smile after the life you've been through that you have right now is proof enough that they work.
Well, thank you. You're not the first person to compliment me on that, and I really appreciate hearing that. Thank you so much.
So what I want to do, one of the last things we do on the show all the time, and you're actually a result of this as well, is something I'll call the Hero Challenge. The Hero Challenge is really easy. It's, do you have someone in your life, in your network, that you think has a really cool entrepreneurial journey that they should come on and share their story here on the Hero Show? Who are they? First names are fine. And why do you think they should come share their story on the Hero Show?
Elle McCain comes to mind because she and I pretty much started freelancing and started our businesses around the same time. I think we got connected about a year afterwards. And Elna actually picked up my free ebook from my website and noticed that I lived in Thunder Bay, Ontario. And she contacted me through social media, through LinkedIn, and said, hey, Lorraine, you know, like, I grabbed your ebook. You live in Thunder Bay. So do I. And I'm like, no way. Like, out of the millions and billions of people in this world, I get an email from, you know, someone who's in my city who found my ebook, and
Nice.
like, we're both freelancers. And I'm like, what are the odds? Like, that's astronomical. So we ended up connecting. We, you know, we still get together, and we get together and go to Starbucks every like month or so, and we talk shop, talk about freelancing and freelance writing, which I'm actually no longer really doing, although I'm focusing more on the editing part. But Elna and I, you know, I look at her and I think, holy smokes, this woman is amazing. She is a mom to twins. At the time I met her, they were twin toddlers. She started a business. She was freelancing. She was writing. She ended up creating courses. Now, a course. She started a course. Now she has courses, like multiple courses that she's created over the years. She has started a bunch of different websites, a bunch of different businesses. Like, she's just amazing what she's doing now online. And I, you know, they always say, don't compare yourself to other people, right? But sometimes we can't help it. We all, you know, we look at somebody, especially if they're doing something similar to what we're doing, not exactly the same, but similar. And we'll think like I just take a look at her, and I'm so proud of her for how far she's come and how she helps so many other people now. So what she does is she helps moms, especially stay-at-home moms, become entrepreneurs to work from home. I mean, because they're moms, they're home anyway, right? So she has a Facebook group called Mom to Mompreneur. She has a website called Twins Mommy, where she, despite its name, she actually focuses on helping mothers become work-at-home mothers. They're, you know, to go from stay-at-home mothers to work-at-home mothers, and start like a side hustle and just start making money working from home because they're home anyway. So she's super inspirational when it comes to that. And she's also she's got a great personality, a great writer, and she's very modest and humble, and I just love her to pieces. So I think Elna Kane from Twins Mommy is the person that should be on your hero podcast.
So
she's one of my heroes.
we will reach out to her and see if we can get her to come on the show. I don't know if you see, but we make little hero challenge videos. Did you get that when we did Mark send it over to you?
I don't think I did. No.
So it's up somewhere. It might be on our YouTube channel, but sometimes they get sent out. Either way, we make little videos out of the little section there of why you think they should come on and send them over to people. Anyways, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Last thing I want to do is find out, where can people find you if they want to reach out, have a book edited, you know, maybe pick up your books, or, you know, talk to you, even if they've got, you know, if they've gone through some of the same trials that you've gone through and they just want to, you know, bend your ear a little bit. Talk about it. Where can they reach out to you?
So wordingwell.com is my main website, and it has a contact page where all of my social media links are listed, as well as my email. I prefer email or Facebook, but if people prefer reaching out a different way, that's fine. Whatever they're comfortable with. I try and make myself accessible to everybody, and, you know, that's why I'm like everywhere. But yes, email or social media, and wordingwell.com is where you can find all my information.
So last question, who are the type of people that should reach out if they're looking to get their book edited? Like, what's the ideal client for you?
There's anywhere from, you know, fiction to nonfiction. There's certain genres that I don't edit, like I don't edit science fiction and I don't edit fantasy. However, I will edit pretty much everything else. A lot of people who just want to even start an ebook for their business. I do a lot of nonfiction, you know, a lot of self-help or instructional manual type of books, and or just guidebooks. You know, like Max's first one was, you know, something about Leading You Out of the Darkness into the Light, A Blind Man's Guide to Success, like the 11 steps to entrepreneurial success. And so, you know, I did another one for a trainer who does, you know, coaching and training for, you know, big corporations. He goes in and, you know, so any kind of like instructional self-help stuff, that stuff is, I love doing that.
So
People, you know, yeah.
Should the book be done before they reach out to you, or can they be in the process, or like where do you help them pick up on the journey?
So most people actually contact me once their book is done. They contact me for editing. However, I do some coaching and some instructional stuff with people if they need help writing their book. That's not something I generally do, but I can. You know, there's a lot of things on my website about that. The self-publishing school is where a lot of people end up going as well. So I simply don't have the time to do everything. However, you know, so that's why my ideal client is someone who's already got their book finished. But if they need help with getting their book done, a lot of people, I know even for me when I was doing my second book, I mean, I started it and then I didn't want to finish it. And so a lot of people have started their works and need to finish it. So if you need some help, you know, getting on that track too, like just email me, reach out to me. I can definitely help you with that, you know.
Awesome. So it's wordingwell.com. And it's thank you so much, Lorraine, for coming on the show today. It was excellent talking to you and getting to hear your story and just see how much success you have achieved in your life despite the difficult story that you've had to go through. So it's definitely inspiring. Thank you for coming on and sharing your story today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Richard. I appreciate it.
Awesome. We will talk soon.
Okay. And I will email you all of those links so you can put them in the show notes.